Abigail, thank you so much for coming on the Easy Prey podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. It's great to be here.
I'm glad you're here. Can you give the audience a little bit of background about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm the global head of external relations for scam prevention at Amazon. And what that means is that I have an opportunity to work really closely with like-minded organizations and individuals who are similarly committed to preventing scams externally out in the world, and also working really closely with our 12,000 Amazonians internally who are working on different facets of preventing scams within Amazon. And so I kind of serve as a bridge between those two worlds, and have entered this sector with, like so many, a personal set of anecdotes of being reached out to by scammers, whether it's from text messages or emails. We all have, I think, at this point, experience, unfortunately, scams, whether we've been victimized or we've just deleted them. It doesn't take a lot to feel really passionate about this work, because it is so tangible and so pervasive, across all age groups, all geographies. We're all susceptible to scams to some extent.
So, did you get into the role because of a particular passion for scam prevention, or was this kind of just the natural course of your career that you got into a role and developed the passion?
Yeah, it's a great question. I probably have a little bit of a non-traditional path to this role. My background is actually in public affairs and corporate strategy roles. Uh, Although the through line, which I think is super applicable to my current role, is working in a cross sector capacity to address super gnarly human challenges. And so that is, I think, on the money for scams. It is a cross sector challenge
Yeah.
that is just beyond complicated, and requires a lot of collaboration and creativity in addressing the challenge.
So did I hear you right in saying that there's 12,000 people at Amazon in some capacity working towards some form of scam prevention?
Yeah, there are.
Wow.
And it runs the gamut, right? Like we have machine learning scientists, we have software engineers, we have expert investigators working on enforcement and accountability activities with law enforcement globally. So there's a whole set of folks behind the scenes that are working on several dimensions of scam prevention.
So I would probably normally ask this later on in the conversations, but I want to ask this up front because Amazon does have such a large global footprint. Do you feel that that gives you guys an advantage of being able to work with what would be local law enforcement in so many different countries because you have a presence in all those countries? So, like, if you were a U.S. company and you were having an issue with someone impersonating your company out of France, well, gosh, now we've got to find lawyers in France and people who have contacts with law enforcement. But if you already have the footprint there because of the business, does it make it easier for you guys to engage with local law enforcement entities?
It's always a challenge, and in some instances it's so specific to the country, and also sometimes the relationships between different countries. And so, while we have a broad reach, I have not seen that be necessarily a something that has made things so much easier
Hmm.
for us, or even for the partners in law enforcement. And it remains something that is tricky to do, of working across across borders to find these perpetrators.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that if there
Yeah.
was some benefit of that more global footprint than maybe some other entities have.
Yeah, I don't really my experience has not signaled that. I think, I would ask some of my expert investigators who are on the ground whether they've experienced anecdotes of success just given our footprint, but I haven't seen that be the case.
Gotcha. So let's jump into it. What are some of the biggest scams that you're working with the public on addressing, and what are you doing about it? What are those scams, and how can we fight them?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So there's two types of scams that I'd want to ensure, especially as we go into this holiday season, and ensure that consumers are aware of. One is we are seeing over 50% of the scams reported to us be order confirmation scams. So whether that's coming through on email or text message or any other communication method, this idea that scammers are saying you've purchased something, they want you to confirm the purchase, you have not in fact made this purchase, and you're being asked to either send information over email or call a customer service hotline to verify the purchase. That is one MO that we are seeing a real uptick on globally,
Hmm.
that consumers should be aware of. And then the second piece is not so much the lure of the MO, but the monetization technique of the scammer, which are around gift cards.
Hmm.
And so that comes in a number of different ways. But one of the things that we want consumers to know is that we will never ask you to pay with a gift card, and we will never ask you to purchase a gift card. And so, if you are receiving communications of any kind that is asking you to do either of those things, it is likely not from Amazon, and you are engaging with somebody else, and should cross reference that transaction on our message center. And I can get into all of the types of things that we're doing across Amazon to um, prevent scams and address scammers. If you want me to, I can definitely go into all the details. But before I go into that, any feedback on those two things?
Yeah, I think that's really clear. It's kind of what the IRS says is, we're never going to call you, is what the IRS says. And the IRS says we're never going to take payment in gift cards. So if someone says gift card around the IRS, just hang up the phone. Uh, so knowing that you guys will never ask people to buy or pay with a gift card is very useful information. Uh, I know one of the common things is, oh, you've got a refund, and in order to issue the refund, we need to access your computer. I assume anytime you're dealing with a legitimate customer service person from Amazon, they will never ask you to install an app or allow them to access your computer.
100%. Yeah. No, we are, that is another sort of line in the sand for us, is that we are not going to ask you to download software, to speak with customer service, to resolve, those things to your account. The best thing that consumers can do is to first validate the transaction or communication on your Amazon account.
Mhm.
And so the good news is that you are safe when you shop on Amazon. As we know, a lot of these scams happen off Amazon, which we can go into
Yeah.
a little bit more detail. But you can always check your account to validate, and really encourage customers to do that. You can also check your message center on your account to see what communications have come from Amazon. And if you still are curious or concerned that you've had a malicious communication, you can report that to Amazon.com/report a scam, and we will get back to you on that. So there are a number of different ways that consumers can kind of go in and validate that an interaction is legit.
And obviously, never click on a link in an email that you think is potentially not from Amazon.
All of those tried and true best practices, I think, are just they continue to be so important. I mean, including be wary of false urgency, right? Like this
Yeah.
idea of, act now or miss out, or you're going to be charged $1,000 if you don't call me right now. If there's something like that, that's when you check all those cross-reference things,
Yeah.
and you go back into your account and you do your due diligence. um, that is the right way to handle the pressure, of some of these scam techniques. And so we want to empower, and support consumers to kind of know that they should do that. And then if you're feeling this pit in your stomach of, oh man, I gotta, and we've all been there, right? Like we get these text messages, we get these emails, and we're kind of like, oh shoot, like did I? And our lives are moving so quickly, and we're inundated with communications. We're all living in this super fast paced world that it's okay to slow down and just take a second before you take action.
So, one other question about Amazon will never. Will
Hmm.
your customer service people ever, uh, not in response to an issue that the consumer has raised, will your customer service department ever call a customer?
Um, there are very, very few instances where that would happen. Um, Chances are, if you're receiving a phone call from someone claiming to be from Amazon, is that you're not. But there that is one that is a little bit trickier
Hmm.
with lots of nuance around it.
But someone from Amazon will be able to provide, I'm calling about an order ID, or they'll be able to provide something
Exactly.
specific that you can identify
Well, even
yourself.
more so, like you would in that instance go back to your Amazon account, whether on the app or the website, and verify the information against your account. And that would be the way to engage with anyone
Yeah.
who's reaching out to you, whether it's a phone call or a text message or any communication method.
Yeah. Customer service is not going to call you and ask you to confirm your social security number.
I should hope not. And so, or your mother's maiden name or
Yeah.
something. I mean, these are really, really serious pieces of information that people are exploiting, and we have to make sure that people know, to the extent we can, what information we are going to be asking of customers, how we're going to be doing it. And I think from um, a sort of a bottom line perspective is you are safe when you shop on Amazon. And if you have questions about an interaction you've had, you can check on your any interaction.
Hmm.
You can check on your message center, on your account transaction history, or the amazon.com/report a scam, and we can validate an interaction. And so those are the best ways to kind of cross-reference any communication you get.
Gotcha. So let's talk about some of the things that Amazon is doing to try to prevent scams, like we've been talking about mitigation, you know, educating the public. What are some of the other things that Amazon is doing behind the scenes to try to reduce the opportunity for scammers to pretend to be Amazon?
Yeah. So I think it's worth kind of taking a step back for a minute before I go into all the things that we're doing, and just kind of provide a little bit of framing on why we're doing this. And as many people know, we strive to be the Earth's most customer centric company. And so all of our work around scam prevention is fueled by that ambition. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about ways that customers need to be protected, how we can support them, and how we do right by them should they fall victim to scams, and support prevention more broadly. The other piece is that we feel a sense of responsibility to protect all consumers. So as
Hmm.
much as we're committed to our customers, we see, an issue like preventing scams extending beyond our customer base to consumers more broadly. And so where there's opportunities to learn from other organizations, to share our work with other similarly committed shops, we want to be able to do that. And so that's just sort of the spirit that we're coming into all of our scam prevention work with.
Hmm.
Um, and the work that we do on scam prevention can sort of fall into one of three buckets. The first we've talked about a little bit on the consumer education side, and we have, you know, efforts to educate consumers as part of the customer journey. So we
Yeah.
will send regular emails to customers to remind them of some of the best practices, some tips, and also some of the trends that we're seeing. We've just done this ahead of the holiday season in across the globe. And then there's also work we do in partnership with other organizations. So we've partnered with the Better Business Bureau to do consumer education work. We've partnered with the National Cyber Alliance to amplify best practices around two-factor multi-authentication and password protection and things like that to reach a broader audience and learn from folks who know a lot about scam prevention in their own right. And so working really closely with those organizations, and we'll continue to do that. And then the second bucket is around ensuring that customers know it's really us.
Hmm.
And what we mean by that is when you're getting a communication from Amazon, how can we make sure that you know that it's truly Amazon reaching out to you and not
Yeah.
a scammer? And so there's a number of ways that we do this. And one example of some of the progress we've made on this front is around adopting a sort of email authentication tool, which validates by having our smile logo in sort of the picture box on your email,
Hmm.
along with an at amazon.com email address. Those two things together mean that that's an authentic email from Amazon. And we've adopted that across several email providers in over 20 countries. And we'll just continue to find opportunities to offer our customers that validation of ensuring it's really us. And then the last bucket is around all of our accountability and enforcement work. And so where we see phishing websites or phone numbers, we've shut down over 20,000 phishing websites just this year,
Awesome.
over 10,000 phone numbers that were associated with phishing attempts, and have made over 100 referrals to law enforcement across the globe, and have and continue to invest a ton of energy into holding these bad actors accountable. And so, between those three things, we are spending a lot of energy and effort to educate, to validate, and to hold accountable those bad actors along the way. And so we have a ways to go. This is, a challenge that uh, is ever changing,
Yeah.
and we're not done yet.
So when you refer to like the 20,000 sites shut down, are you referring
Mm.
to kind of emails that consumers would receive saying go here to log into your account, used for credential gathering?
Yeah, exactly. So it's 20,000 websites that in some way, shape, or form are trying to gather your personal information or your financial information. And yeah.
So if you can tell me, Do you know what kind of the average time from your discovery of a Amazon phishing site until you can work with the host to get it shut down? What kind of that timetable normally is?
I don't have those numbers in top of my mind. But I will say that it ebbs and flows. It is ongoing.
Mhm.
There is no sort of, I think it's safe to say there isn't necessarily like an average that happens. Each case is pretty specific.
Yeah. Yeah, it's shutdown notices are always going to vary by the company that's doing the hosting, what country they're in, how responsive their departments are, and all that kind of fun stuff.
Exactly.
It's just more of a curiosity to know how fast the whack-a-mole game is.
Yeah, and it is so hard. I mean, and it's going to, I know I sort of alluded to it, it's going to continue to be a challenge, right? Like as we get more creative in the way that consumers are paying for things, the way that consumers are communicating with companies or entities that they're purchasing things from, um, there is just increasing sort of vulnerability and susceptibility and risk of those things being exploited.
Yeah,
And so you get sort of challenges along with some of these advances that continue to keep um, moving the the proactive and reactive sort of line in the sand of like when have you tackled the challenge, right? Because
yeah,
the second you think that you have addressed something or you've wrapped your arms around it, scammers are really creative. They're super inventive. They're well resourced. These folks are oftentimes part of massive criminal enterprises and networks, and they are so creative in the way that they think about things. They are so good at figuring out where consumers are susceptible
yeah.
in their interactions with trusted entities, whether it's a company, whether it's the government, whether it's your friends and family. What are the things that are going to push you into having that knee jerk reaction, into giving away too much?
And I would assume kind of world events, as much as they play into other scams, are going to play into kind of Amazon themed scams of, let's say, during the pandemic. There's fake email. I would assume there was a rise in impersonation emails from Amazon saying, "Hey, we have lots of masks in stock. Here's our. You're an insider customer. We're going to give you first priority if you order through this special link." And of course, it's
Yeah,
just a
yeah,
phishing scam.
exactly. I think, any of those sort of timely moments that they can exploit, they seem to be on top of.
Yeah,
So they are listening, they are aware of what's happening in the world, and they are very savvy at exploiting it. And at the same time, um, good news is that organizations like Amazon and others are putting resources and energy into preventing it and making it more difficult and ensuring that consumers know what's happening out there, can protect themselves, and are sort of working with law enforcement globally to hold these folks accountable for their crimes.
do you feel that because of the size of Amazon, you've got a little bit more sway in working with, let's say, phone carriers to stop text? Uh, you got someone who's sending out text links saying, "Hey, we couldn't make your Amazon delivery today. Click on this link to reschedule it." Do you think
Yeah.
that because of the size of Amazon, you've got a little bit more sway with like phone companies in being able to deal with those in a more timely manner than maybe some smaller entities are?
I think that we have a responsibility to lead where we're able, and to help work really closely with those who are also sort of in the wake
Hmm.
of these crimes. So you mentioned telecommunications companies, email providers. You also have financial institutions of every shape and size, or payment apps, or peer-to-peer financial services. And so, with any of these organizations, Amazon is keen to link arms, work together. We're all a part of this sort of network to fight these bad actors, and to make sure that we're protecting our customers, because we're all being sort of looped in
Yeah.
and exploited through the process of how these schemes are implemented.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the advantages of having 12,000 people on the scam prevention side is that you can collaborate with a lot of different entities. You've got a lot of resources to be able to work with other entities and try to find solutions.
Yeah, and we have we also have a lot of ground to cover ourselves, and so we want to go deep, and we want to make sure that we are, again, really protecting our customers, supporting consumers writ large, because we've experienced success and we've scaled. We have a responsibility to um, leave the world better than we found it, and so we want to make sure that we are living those sort of principles that we espouse.
Without disclosing kind of insider trade secrets, so to speak, are there tools that you're building that kind of benefit other resellers and other organizations that they're kind of benefiting from because of the work that you're doing?
You know, the it's a good question. There's a lot of really interesting um, activities out there, a lot of innovation that is underway, which is really encouraging. And we're exploring sort of the merits of a lot of different approaches
Hmm.
and technologies. Some of the stuff that we've done very publicly in recent months, especially, is working closely with some consumer organizations, in particular, the Better Business Bureau, as I
Hmm.
mentioned earlier. We launched this fall a scam tracker tool. We partnered with the Better Business Bureau and Capital One Bank to update the tool, make it mobile friendly, easy for consumers to report scams, but also track trends, see if there's others who have experienced a similar scheme. Sometimes you wonder,
Yeah.
am I going crazy here? Like, is this just me? Like, is anybody else seeing this? And we kind of do that, that gut check. And so you can do that on this tool, and there's a lot of information that is available there. And so things like that, we've already kind of put out there,
Hmm.
and we've already, adopted the email verification technology. We'll continue to do things like that. But as I said earlier, uh, the the world is just getting more complicated,
Yeah.
right? Like, the moment you think you've tackled one challenge, there is another one that comes up, and so we have to constantly ensure that we are protecting our customers with every technological and convenience we're putting out on the market.
So I know a lot of the password managers out there are now uh, uh, using kind of a built-in. Every password manager calls the feature something different, where they're looking for compromised credential combinations. Is that something that Amazon has implemented on their side? So if you were made aware of through these breach databases and whatnot that, hey, our customer A's username password combination uh, is out there in the wild, is that the sort of thing that you'll notify the consumer, hey, your password may have been compromised in the same way a password manager might do it?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd want to follow up with some of our tech side who manages sort of the standard operating procedures for different breaches or risks of account
Hmm.
takeover or any of those activities. I'm not the I'm not the person who's doing a lot of those procedures, so I'm probably less knowledgeable to speak on them. You don't want me to start implementing code and SOPs and things like that.
No, I totally appreciate it. I just didn't know if there was kind of a, if that process was in place and you knew about it, if there was a standardized email that consumers would get so they would know that this is a legitimate notification from Amazon about something like this versus just another phishing attack.
Yeah, it we have uh implemented this last year. We've started to do a lot more communication with consumers and customers on scams just
Hmm.
across the board. Even so far as to when you report a scam, you will receive communication back saying we've logged this report, thank you for submitting. So there's things like that we are doing much more of, and we'll continue to, I think, over the next year or so, do a lot more sort of proactive
Hmm.
communication, get on the front foot with our customer communication in particular.
So with your report a scam tool link,
Mhm.
how do you know about how many are getting reported on a annual, daily, weekly, monthly basis through that tool?
Yeah, we have we have those numbers, and we have a lot of submission. We've just launched this tool in the last year, and so we're still kind of getting a baseline
Hmm.
of how consumers are the trends in consumers reporting. I think one of the things, just as you're saying that, reminded me of one of the things that makes this so tricky, and we've alluded to it a couple of times in our conversation, but just to underscore, is that these are happening. These impersonation scams are happening most often outside of our store,
Yeah.
and so we rely very heavily on consumers and customers reporting these scams to us to track.
Yeah.
And so, the numbers that we have, the reports we get, um, are going to our ambition is that they are going to get more of a steady baseline as we educate consumers and
Hmm.
customers that this type of reporting tool is available. Because I'm highly suspicious, and my hypothesis is that we are not getting all of them,
Yeah.
and that there's a lot of crimes out there that we have no line of sight into, just given the nature of these types of scams. And so we have a lot more work to do to really understand, I think, across the industry, not just Amazon, like to really understand how deep these schemes are impacting consumers. I don't think we really know.
Yeah. I mean, because if I think through it, I probably get, oh, let's maybe one or two. It varies. So I get like scam texts, text messages. They ebb and flow. I
Mhm.
don't think I've ever reported a single one of those to anybody. I just delete, 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 delete. And for the most part, I think as I've gotten older and my time has become more valuable to me, I've personally taken less and less time to report phishing scam emails and things like that, just because, not that I don't think it will do anything, but like, okay, well, this is the 15th one today. Do I really want to spend another 15 minutes trying to find the FedEx report a scam tool, the
Yep.
Amazon? Like, it just becomes complicated. I know that
Yeah.
sure I
Yeah.
can report stuff to IC3 and it'll go into it'll go into some database somewhere, but I don't have that feeling of like, well, I've done something.
I,
Um, eh,
I think that's it's a really good point and a real challenge I think the sector has of trying to wrap your arms around the challenge and getting customers and consumers to share their experiences and to take action on it. It makes it very difficult to prevent it if you don't know what's happening.
yeah, and if you do start, particularly since the tool is fairly new, if you do see a sudden uptick in something, is it because there really is an uptick in the scams involving that, or are people just reporting more of them?
Exactly. I think it's a fair question and something that we're evaluating right now. We're still kind of monitoring trends and causality and all of that of what are the inputs that deliver the outputs and how do we kind of cull through all the data to figure out what's real and what's not and we're still learning. um,
So what types of reports are you? If you could put a call out, we want you to submit your reports. What would those be?
um,
Anything that's suspicious that has the word Amazon in it?
I think there's a couple of places to report. I would encourage all consumers to report any suspected scam activity to Scam Tracker.
Hmm.
That the BBB Scam Tracker tool. I would say for Amazon specifically, any scam where you are being asked to pay Amazon in Amazon gift cards, if you're being asked to verify an order or a purchase that you have no record of making, those are the types of
Hmm.
things that I would just really underscore consumers to share with us and to make sure that we know it. But it's not limited to that.
Hmm.
If there's any sort of um, there's sweepstakes. There's uh, join a product testing route, right? Like there's all these different
Yeah.
things that come through that you just have to um, that are it's perfectly fine. I want to destigmatize that like not knowing what these things are is a very natural human response to
Yeah.
getting something kind of hinky, and it's okay to cross check it and reach out to us regardless of what it is, but in particular order confirmations, gift cards, please be mindful.
Perfect. Are there any particular resources you want to mention as we wrap up? I know you mentioned the BBB Scam Tracker tool. Do you happen to know the URL off the top of your head?
The BBB, I think it's at bbb.org/scam tracker is what I that'll get you close to it.
If not, we
Uh,
will find it and put it in the show notes along
yeah,
with your guys' link. Any other
perfect.
resources people should be keeping their eyes on?
No, I think for Amazon purposes, please check your account. You are protected when you're on Amazon.com. Check your message center, all of your communications with Amazon to validate that your communication is authentic. And if you have any more questions about your communication, you can always go to amazon.com/report a scam. I am optimistic. I know this is a challenge and will continue to be a challenge, but um, I am optimistic that we can make some real inroads on this challenge in collaboration, and we will continue to find opportunities to link arms with organizations who are facing some version of this challenge within their own organization. So It is not over. We are working really hard on this challenge, and the more that we can get cross collaboration with all of the stakeholders involved, I think the better.
Do you, as we wrap up, do you see any kind of trends that are we're seeing this rise of this new type of scam or this new methodology or a new approach that you're like, hey, we need to make people aware of this new trend?
I think, the for us, impersonation scams just generally
Hmm.
are the scam that we are seeing most prevalent. And then even within there, I know I mentioned, but even within there, the order confirmation is is super popular. Over 50% of the scams reported to us are order confirmation scams. And so some combination of those two for now are the scams that we are really hoping that consumers and customers at large are able to avoid this holiday season in particular.
Gotcha. Abigail, thank you so much for coming on the Easy Prey podcast today.
Thank you. It was great talking with you, Chris.